Hello there and welcome to this Voice of the Customer session, coming to you as part of our Avantra Summit, focused on helping you go further, faster. My name is Brenton O'Callaghan and I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Avantra. And from wherever and whenever you're joining us, thank you for your time, you're very welcome, and I hope you'll find this session useful. If you want to view more sessions from the Avantra Summit, please do check out our website at avantra.com. And you can also find this and other videos on our YouTube channel. In my role, I get the pleasure of hearing firsthand from our customers and partners about how they're evolving their SAP operation workflows to embrace automation, intelligence, and more. And my guest today is right at the forefront of a transformation like this. I'm delighted to be joined by Robert MacDonald, Innovation and Technology Manager at Absoft, a mid-size managed service provider based in Aberdeen, Scotland. Bob, it's great to have you here and thanks for joining me.
Hi, Brenton. It's great to see you again.
Absolutely. And before we kind of get into the questions, and I know we have some great topics to go through, why don't you give a little bit about yourself and a little bit about where Absoft is and what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So Absoft's an end-to-end SAP consultancy. So we do implementation and support and upgrades and everything else that goes with SAP. We've got a very well-established support centre that we've brought Avantra into to help us mainly with our managed service customers for the past, I think, it's more than 2 years now. I think we've used Avantra as our main monitoring and automation platform and support. So I've been kind of at the centre of bringing that in really for our customers and our service.
So, but Absoft generates about 80 or so percent of existing or generates 80% of revenue from its existing customers, and that's something that you're obviously very, very proud of. It's great to see customers sticking with you. What do you attribute that success to, and how has the automation foundation helped in that journey?
Yeah, it's definitely one we like to brag about that. But one of the longest customers, our first customer from 31 years ago. So it's
Wow.
definitely a very continuous relationship. And I think the people right from the top of the business, the people that involved in those relationships, treat our existing customers as the centre of everything we do. So a good example of that would be my role in innovation. Anything that we test, it's always a test within which of our existing customers have this problem. What can we do to help? And what can we do to be the right partner for the customer base that we have? And that is very much an ethos that leads to that. When we brought in Avantra, there's there's naturally as there is with any product, there is a cost associated with doing that. And we brought that into all of our customers proactively. We did that for all of our existing support customers, kind of on a if they need it or not basis, just to get that automation platform in there to allow us to be more valuable to our customers right off the bat. So there was a proof of concept phase, went very well, and then we rolled it out to everybody. And since then, even the basic capabilities, the insights from monitoring, and the sort of standard automation, as we call it, that we just do for that has been very beneficial to clients, and it's been something that we're then able to speak about in all those review meetings and so on. The clients have got really involved. It's kind of changed even the expectation of the clients. They now come to us and say, what can we do? Can we do monitoring for this? Can we automate that? That conversation's happening. So by kind of really making that investment, proactively taking this out and say, we can't keep doing things manually. This is happening. We're automating monitoring. We're bringing an automation platform to everybody by standard. It's one platform, beneficial for us, but it's also then beneficial for clients. So I think that's probably the main way that Avantra fitted into our client retention, I'd say.
Yeah, and the nice thing I'm hearing there is that you're almost leading your customers on this automation journey and helping them understand why it's important. And I'd imagine that's something they appreciate. And it's a big reason why, they look to you as the experts, and you are giving them value add every time they renew with you. They're getting something better, there's something stronger, something that's helping them move faster. And I can imagine that is a big part of that retention as well.
That absolutely is, yeah. I mean, think of it as maybe a few customers that we see this is the right thing. This is what we have to do to be the right partner for those customers because they're asking for it. But then 6 months later, we get a call from someone saying, I can't believe, systems went down last night. You knew about it before we did. And they weren't talking about automation 6 months ago, but they then see the value. So it's absolutely how it's gone.
Brilliant. And let's shift slightly and talk about your teams internally that actually run the managed services for your customers. How has Avantra improved, and how has this automation foundation improved the productivity? And there's time savings obviously associated with automation implementations. And if we're taking what Gartner's talking about at the moment, it's all about hyper automation and business hyper automation. Obviously, Avantra isn't a hyper automation platform, but that time saving leads into that, right? So how has Avantra improved your lives to enable you to do that stuff?
Yeah, it's definitely always what people want first out of automation. I know you know that more than most probably. It's always that, how can I save costs of this? And people do need to understand
Yep.
it does take effort to set the automation up, to run it, to maintain it. There are other benefits beyond the productivity. But for the productivity, for us, we were reasonably mature with various homemade's not the right term, but various self-developed tools, shall we say, that we'd had over the last decade or so for doing monitoring and so on. And I can remember speaking about this a lot when we first started working together, and I think I've now
Yep.
a few of your other customers since then, and I know that's very common. A lot of people have got something to start from, some platform there, and we were seeing challenges with where we were before. We didn't have a lot of flexibility in the tool to do things like tuning out what we were monitoring, doing bespoke things for different people. That was a real problem. It was very difficult to maintain and operate without really advanced knowledge and so on. So the first thing and the real kind of business case, I would say, for us was just having a flexible platform that's easy to use, that's well documented, that anyone can work with. That then allowed us to stop this time that we were spending processing either spurious alerts or things that we just didn't have the complexity in our old tool to actually filter out. So we suddenly were able to just drop all that and start really tuning things. And now we've got to the stage where every single monitoring alert, this was an early deliverable, every single monitoring alert is now a support call immediately. So it's immediately logged as an incident. We were not able to do that before. So that was something it was actually a manual effort we were doing on top of our previous automation that's just completely gone. And then I think the other aspects also related to the documentation and so on as well. It's the fact that now others can do automation. It's not just the one or two people on the team that can get really skilled up and really knowledgeable with something. Anybody can now be taking forward initiatives to do things, and that then changes the whole model, and it brings it into the ethos as well. So it's like a natural reaction to things coming up to me this yes.
I mean, that's a fantastic story as well, though, because essentially what you're alluding to there is, people on the team who are not necessarily coders can suddenly start to say, actually, do you know what? I know there's a better way of doing this. I don't need to know how to do JavaScript. I don't need to know how to do Python. Let me just do a few clicks here and see what I can make happen to make my life easier and to free up my time. And that's a tremendously valuable asset to the business, I can imagine, because you're enabling those folks to make their own jobs far from obsolete. You're getting them to take their tribal knowledge and to turn that into an automation that benefits your customer, which ultimately then frees up their time to do more interesting stuff, the stuff they probably want to be doing in the first place. Is that fair?
I think it absolutely is, yeah. And it's where people want to be going. It's development for people. It's career development. It's the only way, automate yourself out of the role to get the next one is, and it's been reflected in what I think people are looking for now in skill sets. What organizations are looking for in terms of skill sets, but it's also what individuals are looking for as well, and what they want to be doing. You don't study computer science to go and sit and do manual checks. It's just not. You think this could be done.
And the second thing I want to pick up there from what you said as well is that it's that journey, right? Which is, you start to automate some of those basic things, and this is the manual effort that really shouldn't have been there in the first place. And you keep reinvesting the benefit that you realize from that automation into more automation, And again, going back to that term hyper automation, how do you get to the point of, okay, now we're cooking, now that's self-sufficient. What am I going to do with all this time from the team? And that's where competitive advantage starts to come in. That's where you're creating, going back to the first point, those differentiation points that make your customers go, yes, we're renewing with Absoft. Absolutely we are, because we're getting so much cool new stuff from them that we never even heard of. So I think that journey is very important and really fascinating as well. let's move a little bit towards the cloud, because what tech discussion isn't complete without a bit of cloud in there, and obviously that's a big part of what you do. Tell us a little bit about how that journey is going for your clients and what you're seeing in the market, and how the Automation Foundation is enabling that for your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in the last 5 years or so, for the installed base of SAP customers, the overwhelming cloud move has been moving to running SAP on hyperscalers. So we're talking about the on-premises SAP systems moved into hyperscalers. So Absoft, we specialize in. I think we've moved pretty much almost all of our existing customers, I think, are now running in Azure. So certainly it's 90%, I think, of the systems we have in Avantra are in Azure. So
nice.
There's specific capability, I think, in Avantra that we use quite a lot. So obviously the fact that you're aware of that hyperscaler platform, the Avantra, as well as monitoring the SAP systems, it will connect to the underlying platform to monitor the virtual machines. The stop and start of SAP systems also stops and starts the virtual machines, which has a cost, of course, in the infrastructure. So we're into the world of FinOps there. So we've got some custom checks as well, where we actually monitor the spend that customers are making in the cloud. So we can monitor that for when something's not in line with budget, if something's been spun up or auto scaled or whatever in a way that's causing a problem. So we can monitor the financial side of things, which I think is something that's
awesome.
A lot of companies are painfully aware of now. I think a few years ago people maybe weren't aware of it. Now most companies probably are, because they've been through that pain. So that's been good. So we're kind of giving the customers the tool. We give them self-service dashboard in the Avantra to do the start and stop for their non-production and so on. Isn't used as much as you might think, but certainly for sandboxes and stuff, we do have customers that use that.
Project environments, all that kind of stuff.
That works really well. And then we do that monitoring of the financial side, which is good as well. And even just sort of more simple things as well. The way that backup and restore and stuff's done is different now. So there's an element of monitoring there, but also an element of automation, because we can do spinning up a DR environment entirely automatically. So we can trigger things like that. So it's certainly using Avantra has been very, very key to that part. I think the future, I mentioned that's the last 5 years, and it's still probably the vast majority now, but the thing that's really taking off is all of SAP's own cloud products. So they're
sure.
Things like SuccessFactors, Concur, Ariba, but also the S/4HANA Cloud Rise with SAP. We are increasingly seeing customers taking up those offers, or at least reviewing them in detail. And I think maybe a way to put that would be that some people are buying into these multiple SaaS solutions that are connected together, whether they're SAP or non-SAP, and seeing, it's SaaS, so don't need to worry, what we set it up works. Each individual tool, that's true. What it's not true for is they all get upgraded on a different cycle. They're all connected together. It works on day one. 6 months later, the SSL certificate expires and the connection's broken. You've still got the same problem you've always had with, somebody phoning the IT help desk. I can't get into this thing that I use in my job. And everyone's like, well, what is that thing? Where do you get it from? Where's it working out what it is? So that requirement for the monitoring piece is still absolutely there. So that's a really big part of what we're kind of starting to do and continue to develop, how we bring the monitoring, the automation into that SaaS world. So that's the kind of edge of the.
And I think you're right that that's actually a big challenge. We hear a lot about that challenge. It's that when you're using the best of breed solution for the point problem that you have, how do you visualize that end to end? How do you ensure that SAP plays nicely with non-SAP, plays nicely with cloud-based SAP, etc., etc. The amount of times I've heard stories about, the API between system A and system B slightly changed and now it's broken. SSL certificates is another big one. These things do tend to go wrong, and until you've got visibility into that and you can see how it can impact your actual core business processes, you kind of leave yourself at risk. So that sounds fantastic. The spend one is one I particularly love, and I'm sure that'll make it into future versions natively. But I mean, that's just one that every customer is asking about. How do we visualize our spend? How do we ensure that we're not overspending? How do we ensure that this project over here, which has an environment, isn't spending, accidentally spinning up a high memory instance and spending thousands of euro or dollars in a week. So that's a big one as well. And in that automation strategy, and there's a lot of automation we talked about there, and automation here, I'm talking not just the actual act of doing something, but also monitoring automation as well as notification automation, the whole lot. What's next for you? Because you are on this journey. Obviously, there's evolutions coming. What are you looking to next?
Yeah, it's always a good question, and one that I certainly have a good answer for as an innovation manager. I think the big thing, and it's maybe not an exciting thing, but the big thing is just more automation. So it's very much. I've got a process now of tracking automation ideas, so they get flagged from support calls, they get flagged from customers, they get raised by our own team as well. And it's all based on that kind of ethos thing. It's building that expectation of automation. People are suggesting things. We review them and analyze them from a business case perspective. So it doesn't need to be that we're necessarily making money from it or saving money from it, but it needs to be that it's a wonderful thing to do versus the effort of doing it. And we're continuing to move forward with more and more things. And what I think's been particularly interesting is we're kind of growing, I would say, with Avantra on that. So the new features that you've come out in every release, you've always got another thing automated essentially by standard. That's another thing you have to develop, which was going right back to the very beginning, the whole build or buy discussion of monitoring tools and automation tools. That's something that's good to see, that there's that regular path of things being released, that we're able to do more complex automation, and also I would say automation that's quite difficult for maybe one business to develop. Because you obviously are centralizing for a whole range of enterprise customers and things. That model is definitely working, so we're seeing that path. The other thing is developing our actual service. So the world of SAP and consulting certainly has not been in more flux, as it were, than it is now. Certainly the time I've worked in it, with the SAP cloud products becoming more and more popular, and that real fundamental shift and the S/4HANA way is happening now. It really is happening, as kind of revenues tip in favor of the newer products. So starting to look at making sure the service is right for the future. And I can't say too much about that, but certainly some of the time that's been saved in automation is being used by our team on specific add-ons to our support service that solve problems we know our customers have. So we're kind of releasing some just sort of smaller things, but there's also fundamentally new services, as in what is the service for a customer that has a completely new landscape of cloud native products. That's the bigger picture piece that's alongside there, and it's all about getting the automation is not something that we think about 20 years later, but that like we did in the on-prem and the R3 world. It's from the beginning, and using the tooling. The tooling is lacking in the market, frankly, from the vendors. So we're there. So I would say there's small, medium, and big things all kind of coming next, as it were.
That sounds really exciting, and it sounds like we'll have to do a follow-up when some of that starts to come out and you can start to talk about it. It would be great to do a follow-up to see what that is and how it's impacting your customers. And it's that whole automation piece is obviously transforming what your customers can then do, because they're not having to worry about the stuff. Obviously, they're paying you anyway to look after their systems, to make sure they're up and running. But the reality is, this is giving them peace of mind. It's giving them time. It's giving them back effort that they can expend elsewhere. Do you find there's a lot of conversations about their own automation within their own businesses? And is that where they're focusing their time? Again, going back to this whole thing that Gartner's pushing with the hyper automation and that kind of stuff. Is that something you're seeing a lot of?
Yeah, we definitely are. I mean, it's definitely an expectation now that there's automation there. I think 10 years ago, just automating literally anything in support was a differentiator. That's not the case now. There is an expectation.
Right.
I think there's a little bit of automation for automation's sake as a trend, but the thing that's interesting for me is that it's the fact that some businesses now are really waking up to the idea of IT as a business differentiator for pretty much any business. And it's not so much that they don't know that already, but it's about the fact that it gets blocked by having to work on the day-to-day. So One client in particular has spoken a lot recently about what they call fourth line support, and this is the fact that every time they have any kind of incident that's beyond the incredible simple thing, their whole IT department end up getting involved, and they end up with people that are very, very senior, people in architect roles, people who are supposed to be doing projects that bring business forward. All of those people end up getting dragged into these issues to work it out. And it's often something simple. It's like an API, it's like an interface.
Sure.
Versus different systems. It's who actually knows who to talk to, who to work with there. So they've actually, that particular customer have done a fairly significant restructure of their whole IT department to shift the focus completely toward service providers meeting the need of all the run in the day-to-day, which is where our role continues there effectively as it has done. But then having their own staff not getting dragged into all that. So they want their own staff to be doing the business improvement projects, which of course also includes us, but in a slightly different capacity. So that change has been really interesting because they had a few people that were on their side really doing day-to-day work, and what they did, they knew how everything connected together. They knew who to speak to. They knew what the right contact was, what the process was for everything. And all that knowledge has to somehow be replaced. So we could have two people dedicated to that account and just have that knowledge moving from one head to another. But that's not the approach we've taken. What we've done is we've taken everything that we've been developing, working on with Avantra, and we've said we're going to institutionalize this knowledge. It's in the system. We're going to put dashboards in of how all your systems connect together. Of course, those are live dashboards that show bits are working, where the connections are working. We've given them all that. We've worked with them. We're going through workshops at the moment to understand who do we contact about some third-party system that might not even be in the scope of our contract, but we've added sufficient scope to be able to, to be able to monitor it, even though we don't fix it.
Absolutely.
So we've got different connectivity, and of course, as you know, Avantra can do email communication, or it can do phone, it can call APIs. So we've got it logging calls to the customer's system and assigning them to the right team. It logs calls in our system and assigns it to the right team. It's also emailing random people. So it contacts the right people as soon as a failure happens, and it's giving that visibility to their help desk. So essentially what it's done is it's taken that whole operational requirement in the IT department just to know how everything hangs together and automated that, which has then enabled them to actually deliver in a cost-effective way the whole restructure of the IT department that they've tried to do, or they have successfully done, in order to have their own staff focusing and moving forward on the business improvement work. So it's up to those people now to do the business improvement work, but they have the tools to do it now, and they're not going to be distracted by the day-to-day every time a certificate expires or an interface breaks down, because of the fact that we've done that. And I think I've been very proud of that one, because it's been a genuinely innovative thing, I think, for a consulting firm to be able to do. Because we could have easily said, oh, okay, fine, this is a great opportunity for us, you're restructuring IT, here's some bodies, here's their day rate. We haven't done that. We've gone in with an automation first approach, and it's kind of been everything we have been working on for the past 2 years come together in one very successful example. So I'm very proud of that just now.
And you should be. I mean, that is absolutely a fantastic story. And the word that came to my mind as you were describing it was context. Because, when you say suddenly your automation foundation isn't just about telling your own teams what to do, it's about telling the customer, extension teams about what to do, but also providing them not just information saying, hey, this system is broken and it's your problem, go fix it. It's this system's broken, and here's the contextual information as we understand it about how that system connects to other systems. And we think that this is you, and here's the information you'll need to fix it. I mean, that to a lot of customers is the dream, right? That's what they're trying to get to, but getting there is a huge task. And I absolutely love that story, and you should be very proud of it. And that's a fantastic story to really showcase the power of institutionalizing that tribal knowledge into your foundational systems that do the monitoring, that do the management of your entire landscape. So it tells you what to do and where to do it and why to do it. So that's absolutely fantastic. Bob, we've actually gone over time, which has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed this discussion. I do like closing these out with any kind of parting thoughts or parting wisdom you would give other folks who are in a similar situation as yourself. We talked about hyper automation, foundational platforms, institutionalizing the knowledge. What would be your key learning that you would impart to others?
I think my big thing, or what we've learned the most, I think, over the last 2 years, is it's all about there's a balance. The balance is get started, do something, but do it for a business reason. So it's got to be tested, and it's got to be something that's actually going to work and deliver a business benefit, not automation for automation's sake. But I think we've gone down. I think in the last 2 years, I've made an error in both directions. I've done automation for automation's sake, just to get something done, and I've also done the business side, and I've tried to do something that's impossible to automate, and it just becomes a disaster. Hit the balance right in the middle. Get going with something, and test it and make it work, and you'll be, you need to be speaking to a lot of people to pull that off, to get right down the middle of that balance. And that's where we finally started to see some things coming out of this that are
bringing your IT and your business closer together to bring hyper automation success. I absolutely love it. Bob, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everybody for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the session. If you want to see more, please check out our YouTube channel. But for now, from me, thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye.